On a freezing winter night, a 17-year-old black girl was biking through the streets, making deliveries, just hoping to earn enough for one more night at the boarding house. As she hurried to finish her last order, she saw an old man standing by the bus stop, lost and shivering. She hesitated. This delivery was her last chance to keep her job, but kindness was that the man was a billionaire and that one small act of compassion would change her life forever. Before we dive deeper into the story, tell me, where are you listening from? And don't forget to subscribe so I can share more heartwarming stories with you tomorrow. The wind off the river cut through Maple Brook like broken glass, sharp and cold enough to sting your teeth when you breathed. Street lights flickered over patches of under tired feet. Alana Carter pedaled fast, head down her gloved hands, stiff on the handlebars of a second-hand bike whose chain groaned at every turn. 17, thin and tougher than she looked, she had learned to keep moving, deliveries paid by the mile, not by the hour. One more order before curfew, one more envelope of cash, one more night. She wouldn't be locked out of the only room she could afford, trying to drown the hunger in her stomach and the ache in her legs. Her phone buzzed with a message from her manager. "Don't be late again. Last warning." She shoved it back into her pocket, jaw tightening. The air smelled of iron and chimney smoke, the kind of cold that made you feel like even the sky had given up. At the corner near the bus depot, her front tire skidded slightly over ice. Stood by a rusted bus sign, coat-thin scarf half undone, clutching a crumpled paper in shaking fingers. His skin was pale under the orange streetlight, his eyes searching every passing car, as if might roll up any second. He murmured something Aaliyah couldn't catch. Maybe a bus number, maybe a name. She slowed one foot, dragging the ground, watching him from a few yards away. No one else did. People kept walking, heads down, collars up, too busy or too cold to care. You can't stop. She bit her lip. The clock on her phone flashed 7:41. The delivery had to be done by 10 minutes late, and she'd lose not just her pay, but the week's rent. She glanced again at the man. His mouth moved soundlessly, the paper trembling in his hands. He looked lost, not waiting lost like a child who wandered too far and forgot the way back. Her mother's voice flickered through her mind, soft and distant. "If you ever see someone alone like that, Aaliyah squeezed her eyes shut, pressing her tongue against the inside of her cheek. "Not tonight," she muttered. "Please, not tonight." She pushed down on the pedals, the bike jerking forward. But after 2 turns of the wheel, her stomach twisted heavy with guilt. The image of the old man wouldn't leave her head, those empty eyes scanning the street, the way his shoulders hunched as if the world had forgotten. Turned the bike around and coasted back toward the bus stop. "Sir," she called, cautious but gentle. "You okay out here?" The man blinked, startled, his gaze cloudy and unfocused. "Bus 2-3, he whispered. "Willow End. I think I missed it." His voice cracked like dry wood. Up close, Aaliyah saw how frail he was, skin thin as paper fingernails, blue from the cold. "You live near Willow End?" she asked. "A long way." He nodded, she said, eyes darting to her phone again. 746. Damn it. She could make it if she left now. But the man shivered, trying to rub warmth into his arms. Aaliyah looked at his shoes. Old leather split at the toes, soaked through. The guilt hit again, sharper this time. "All right," she sighed. "Come on, let's figure this out." He hesitated, confused. "Figure what?" "Getting you home," she said, blinked at her disbelief, flickering like light behind fog. "You don't have to," he murmured. "Someone will come." Aaliyah looked down the road. The buses had stopped an hour ago. Nobody was coming. "Yeah, well, looks like I already did." She knelt, checked her bike's back rack. It wasn't meant for passengers, but it held weight before boxes, groceries, sometimes her own despair. She brushed snow off the seat and looked up. "Can you sit here if I go too late?" she said with a faint grin. "Trouble's kind of my thing." He smiled for the first time, a tired, small curl of his lips. She didn't realize then how much that smile would stay with her, but as he tried to climb on, her phone buzzed again. "Where are you?" She ignored it. Her fingers trembled as she wrapped her scarf tighter around his neck, tucking the ends under his chin. "Hold on," she said. The old man looked at her with glassy gratitude, but his voice trailed away into the cold. Aaliyah didn't ask who. She pushed off the curb wheels, crunching against the snow, legs burning as she pedaled into the biting wind. The delivery bag thumped against her hip, heavy with the last order she wouldn't complete tonight. Behind her, the man hummed something faint, a tune with no words, maybe a memory too faded to name. She clenched her jaw and kept pedaling and compassion. "You just ruined everything," her mind hissed. "Maybe not," her heart answered. The road curved along the river streetlights, blinking in and out like dying stars. Each one passed felt like a countdown. She couldn't stop. Her phone buzzed again and again in her pocket, but she didn't look. She didn't need another threat to know what she'd already lost. The man leaned closer, whispering through chattering teeth. He said, "It's colder than white in the dark. World's meaner, too." He gave a soft, wheezing laugh. Not all of it. She looked over her shoulder, saw the ghost of a smile, and for a moment, the cold didn't feel so cruel. A car splashed past, horn blaring, sending a spray of icy slush over them both. Aaliyah swore, shaking her head. "People are wild," she muttered. "Always have been," the man said, voice where the pavement ended, and the old road began cracked, narrow, half buried under snow. "How far did you say it was?" she asked. "Willow End," he murmured, frowning. "I think near the hills," she sighed. "Great. Oop Hill." The man didn't answer his head, lowering as if sleep might take him right there. Aaliyah bit her lip. A flickering street light, opened her delivery bag, and pulled out the one thing she had left. A thin, cheap blanket meant for groceries. She wrapped it around his shoulders and tucked it close. "You're going to be fine, all right," she said softly. He nodded weakly, eyes half closed. She looked at him for a long second. His face, lined with age and confusion, reminded her too much of the man her mother used to visit at the nursing home, the one who always forgot. "Hang on tight," she whispered. "We're going," and she pedaled again, harder this time. The wind hit her face like needles, but she leaned forward, teeth gritted, heart pounding. Every turn of the wheel echoed in her chest. Somewhere between the sound of the chain and the scrape of her breath, something inside her shifted, quiet, small but undeniable. For the first time that night, she wasn't just trying to survive. The old man stirred, whispering the name Arthur. Aaliyah didn't hear it over the wind. The river glittered beside them like a black mirror. Street by street, light by light, she rode through the frozen silence of Maplebrook, unaware that this single act, the choice to stop to care, was already rewriting both their lives. The tires skidded across patches of black ice, but she kept her balance with the precision of someone who'd had no choice. The old man Arthur clung to the edges of the seat, his hands trembling but still holding on. His breath came in, shallow bursts that turned white in the air and disappeared into the dark. The town lights had already vanished behind them, swallowed by the hill's slow incline. Every time the chain slipped, Aaliyah whispered a curse under her breath. Stop now, not with the wind clawing through their clothes like it wanted to strip them down to bone. Arthur spoke suddenly, his voice small and hesitant. "I used to walk this road a long time ago. It didn't feel so steep then." Aaliyah exhaled hard through her nose, forcing a half smile. "Guess the hill got taller, or maybe I got smaller," he said with a faint laugh that broke into a cough. She glanced over her shoulder, concern flickering across her face. "I'm all right, dear," he said. "I've had worse nights." "Yeah," she muttered, pushing harder on the pedals. "Can't imagine too many worse than this." He chuckled again, weakly this time, and she could feel him shiver behind her. The rhythm of the wheels, the whine of the chain, the crunch of snow, all of it blended into a quiet music that filled the silence between them. For a moment, she forgot how cold she was. Arthur said softly, his words almost lost to the wind. "She used to wear gloves like yours, blue ones, always losing them." Aaliyah blinked, glancing down at her own frayed gloves, once blue now faded to grey. "Guess I got that problem, too," she said. "What happened to her?" The question hung between them. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice cracked like an old door hinge. She passed a few winters back. I still talk in her chest. Yeah, she murmured. I talk to my mom, too. Guess it makes the silence less loud. The old man nodded, though she couldn't see it. For a while, they didn't speak. The world shrank to the road ahead, the snow around them, and the faint hum of their shared breath. Then Arthur's voice came again, softer than before. People used to stop to get somewhere, and nobody remembers where they were going in the first place. Tell me about it, she said. Half the people I deliver to don't even look up from their phones. I'm just another ghost on a bike. You're not a ghost tonight, he said, his tone suddenly clear, deliberate. You stopped. The words hit harder than she expected. She swallowed, blinking back the sting in her eyes. Yeah, well, don't thank me yet. Still got to get you home. And the bike wobbled dangerously. Arthur gasped, clutching tighter to the sides. You all right? Aaliyah asked. Fine, he said, his voice shaky. You sure? Yes, he murmured. You pedal like my daughter, always stubborn. Guess it runs in the family, she said with a small grin. He smiled too, but it faded quickly. The wind picked up again stronger, now pushing against them like a wall. Her legs ached, her fingers numb, but she refused to slow down. Almost there, she told herself. Almost. They passed through a stretch of trees where the branches bent under the weight of snow, creaking like old bones. The world felt suspended. Time slowed. Breath visible. The moon, their only witness. The glow from a distant farmhouse flickered briefly, then disappeared as the hill curved again. Arthur whispered something Aaliyah couldn't make out. She leaned her head. He repeated, a faint smile in his voice. Used to be full of gardens. You could smell the roses before you saw the houses. My wife loved that. You got a wife waiting at home. No, he said, and she could hear the ghost of loneliness in his tone. She's gone, too. Long time ago. Aaliyah nodded quietly. She didn't ask more. The wind carried enough sorrow already. They stopped once under the dim light of an old gas station sign, but a vending machine hummed by the door. Its neon glow, the only warmth for miles. Aaliyah propped the bike against the wall, breathing hard. Her thighs throbbed, and she could barely feel her toes. You thirsty? She asked. Arthur didn't answer, just shivered, his teeth clattering. She rummaged through her pockets, counting the coins, just enough for one drink. She bought a small cup of hot chocolate from the vending machine. Cold air and handed it to him. Careful, it's hot. Arthur wrapped both hands around the cup, staring at it like it was the most precious thing in the world. Then he smiled and pushed it gently toward her. You take the first sip. You need it more, she protested. And you need to keep pedaling, he said firmly, voice laced with quiet authority. Humor, an old man. She gave in, took a small sip, and laughed at how it burned her tongue. See, he said, amused. Still freezing, she shot back. They both laughed, a sound that echoed strange and beautiful against the empty road. When they started again, the air felt different, lighter somehow, though the night hadn't grown any warmer. Arthur hummed softly, a tune without words. It took her a minute to realize it was a lullaby, the same one her mother used to hum when the lights went out during storms. She didn't ask how he knew it. Something they neared the ridge. Her breath came ragged now, every exhale a cloud of pain. The wheels slipped more often, but she refused to stop. She could hear her mother's voice again, in her head, steady and sure. When you help someone, don't count the cost. The good will find its way back. Hold on, she whispered through gritted teeth. We're close. The old man said nothing. His head rested lightly against her back, his breath shallow. She looked up and saw a faint outline of houses below a neighborhood half buried in snow. Old fences, lamplight glowing through fog. That it? She asked, gasping for air. Oak Hill Drive, he said, his eyes brightening for the first time. Just down there, white gate ivy on the fence. You couldn't have mentioned it was uphill. Didn't seem so bad last time, he said, smiling faintly. She laughed by the pound. He chuckled again, and for a fleeting second, She forgot the ache in her muscles. They rolled downhill, the bike rattling snow spraying in thin arcs. The cold stung harder at that speed, but the relief was worth it. At the bottom stood a white gate, paint-chipped ivy climbing over the posts. Aaliyah braked her legs, trembling as the tires skidded to a stop. Arthur exhaled, staring at the gate like a man seeing a ghost. Aaliyah helped him off the bike, steadying his weight as he wobbled on weak legs. The porch light flickered on motion sensor, catching them in a halo of pale yellow. She knocked on the door once, twice. A moment later, it opened. An older man in a housecoat appeared, eyes widening as he saw Arthur. "Mr. Blatant. Lord, above, where have you been?" "Went for a walk," Arthur said softly, but carried a quiet humor that made the other man choke on a half-laugh, half-sob. "We've been calling hospital, sir." We thought he stopped himself, blinking hard. Aaliyah stepped back, unsure what to do. "I just found him at the bus stop," she said quickly. "Didn't know where else to." The man cut her off, shaking his head. "You did right. You did the right thing." He looked at her with genuine gratitude. "Please come in, warm yourself, have some food." "No, I should get back. I've got work." She didn't mention that she'd probably already lost it. Arthur turned toward her, his face soft in the light. "You sure?" "Yes," she said. "Just wanted to make sure you got home safe." She reached into her pocket, tore a piece of paper from an old receipt, and scribbled her number. "In case you need help again," she said, handing it to him. Arthur took it carefully, as if it might break, his voice trembling. "You've done more than you know." She forced a small smile. "Get some rest, okay?" He nodded. The other man ushered him inside, still muttering disbelief, and the door closed behind them. Aaliyah stood there for a moment, watching the light glow through the window, then turned back toward the road. The cold bit harder now, cutting through her clothes, but she didn't care. Her fingers were numb, her stomach empty. Her was a quiet warmth, a pulse of something fierce and good that refused to die. As she pushed the bike back up the hill, she whispered to herself, "Worth it." By the time Aaliyah made it back to town, the sky had gone from black to a dull gray. The first thing Aaliyah noticed when she turned the corner onto her street was no muffled laughter from the tenants upstairs. Not even the creak of the old sign above the door that always swung when the wind picked up. It was too quiet. Her legs were heavy, her lungs burned from the ride, and all she wanted was her bed, a mattress thin as paper, but hers. She pedaled slower, coasting the last few feet, until her bike rolled to a stop in front of the boarding house. In a plastic grocery bag by the door, half covered in snow, the strap of her old backpack sticking out from the top. Her heart dropped. She climbed off the bike, blinking against the cold, trying to tell herself it was a mistake. Maybe the landlord had fixed something. Maybe someone had moved her stuff by accident. But when she reached for her key, it didn't fit. She jiggled it, twisted it hard, the metal biting into her palm. It wouldn't turn. She tried again. It was taped crookedly to the door, written in thick black marker that bled through the paper. "Rent late. Lock changed." The words hit her harder than the wind. She just stood there, her hand frozen on the doorknob, staring at the letters until they blurred. She knocked first softly, then harder. "Mr. Barnes," she called, her voice shaking. "It's me, Aaliyah. Please, can we talk?" No answer. She heard movement inside a chair, scraping a floorboard, creaking, but no one came. "Please," she said again, louder this time. "I'll get the money. I just need a little more time." The silence that followed was worse than a no. She swallowed hard, backing up a step. Her breath came out in white clouds, her hands trembling. "Please," she whispered once more, barely audible. "Nothing. No mercy tonight." She stared at her bag, the one that held her mother's photo, a phone charger that barely worked. It didn't seem like much before, but now it looked like all that was left of her life. She crouched down, brushing snow off the plastic, her fingers stiff and red. She wanted to scream, to kick the door until someone listened, but the fight drained out of her before it could start. She had no strength left to argue with the world. She slung the bag over her shoulder, her movements slow and mechanical in your body, but the kind that sits deep like shame, the kind that tells you you've lost something you can't get back. Her bike leaned against the railing, the one her mother had saved for back when she thought the world would give her daughter a fair chance. Aaliyah ran her hand along the cold metal frame, whispering under her breath, "Guess it's just us again." Her voice cracked on the last word. She begged the owner to let her sleep in a booth until morning, but the diner had closed early all week. The library was too far, the bus station too dangerous at night. She rubbed her hands together, trying to feel something other than panic. The wind stung her face, but she barely noticed. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. The battery was almost dead. A red 3% glowed in the corner. She hesitated, then she scrolled to the top, staring at her last text from her manager. "Don't screw this one up." Her stomach twisted. She'd missed the delivery. He was probably already furious. Still, she typed, fast fingers shaking. "I can explain. There was an emergency. Please don't fire me. I'll work extra shifts. I promise." She hit send. The little bubble appeared delivered. Then the phone vibrated almost immediately. "Incoming call, manager." Her throat tightened. His voice cut sharp through the static. "What happened tonight?" "I got delayed," she said quickly. "There was this old man at the bus stop. He was lost. And you stopped for some random stranger." He snapped. "You realize the customer called me 3 times, asking where their package was." "I know. I'm sorry, but it was freezing and he could have." "You think I care?" His voice rose. "You're not paid to play hero. You're paid to deliver." She bit her lips so hard her voice small now. "I need this job. I'll make up for it tomorrow." "I'll know," he said, flat and final. "You won't. I can't keep someone who doesn't follow orders. I'll have your last pay ready next week. Bring your uniform by then." "Wait, don't." But he'd already hung up. The silence on the other end was immediate and brutal. She stared at the cracked screen, her reflection faint and ghostly. Her breath fogged over it into her pocket, her hands shaking uncontrollably now. "Great," she muttered. "Perfect." She laughed, but it came out wrong, brittle and hollow, the kind of laugh that meant the opposite of what it sounded like. The street was empty except for her voice bouncing weakly off the walls. She sank down on the steps, her bag beside her, her elbows on her knees. The cold wood bit through her jeans, soft and steady, landing on her hair and melting down her neck. For a while, she just stared at the road unfocused. Her thoughts tangled, looping between what now and why me, until they didn't make sense anymore. Somewhere down the street, a door opened and closed. Light spilled briefly onto the snow. If the person behind that door had any idea how lucky they were to walk into warmth without thinking about it, to not have to beg the world for a place to sleep. Her eyes stung, but she didn't cry. The tears wouldn't come. She'd run out of those months ago. She pressed her palms together, blowing into them for warmth. "You did the right thing," she told herself quietly, the words coming out shaky. "You did the right thing." But the world didn't seem to care about clocks that didn't stop ticking. She lifted her head and looked up at the window of her old room. It was dark now. Someone else would probably be in there by tomorrow, someone who could pay. The thought cut deep. She stood, pulling her coat tighter, the strap of her bag digging into her shoulder. The air hurt when she breathed. She looked at her bike again, the old metal glinting faintly under the streetlight. Her voice barely carried over the wind, but it was enough. She got back on the bike, the seat cold, the pedals stiff. She pushed off slowly, her breath forming clouds in the air as she rode through the empty street. The snow hissed under the tires, and behind her the house faded into the dark. She didn't know where she was going, just that she couldn't stay. The wind had only grown worse by the time Aaliyah reached the edge of pedaling through snow, her fingers stiff and cracked around the handlebars. She had nowhere to go, no room, no job, no one to call. The lights of Maplebrook's Main Street flickered weakly ahead of her, and at the far corner, she saw it, a small convenience store, still open, its neon sign buzzing in the dark. The windows were fogged, the inside dim and yellow under the tires crunching against the frozen ground, and stopped just outside. For a moment, she stared at the glowing sign, unsure if she had enough courage left to walk in. She needed warmth just for a few hours, enough to stop shaking. That was all. She pushed open the door. The bell above it jingled softly. A wave of stale air met her half-coffee, half-floor cleaner. Behind the counter stood two men. The older one, in his late 50s, had grey hair and kind eyes. The other was younger, mid-30s, maybe with a slick haircut and a permanent frown. His name tag said Evan. Harold looked up first, his expression curious but not unkind. Evan, on the other hand, scanned her from head to toe like she didn't belong there. "You lost?" he asked, his tone dry. "No," she said quietly. "Just cold." Evan raised an eyebrow. "We don't let people hang around here. Store is not a shelter." Henry shot him a warning glance. "Relax, Evan. You okay, sweetheart?" Aaliyah nodded, hugging her bag close. "I just need to rest a bit. I can help if you want. Stock shelves clean. Whatever." Evan scoffed. "Yeah, sure. That's what they all say before the cash draw's short." Henry frowned. "Enough." Then turning back to her, he sighed. "You said you'd help. Fine. You can organize the shelf by the drinks cooler. Just don't block the aisles." "Yes, sir," she said, grateful enough that her voice trembled. But Henry ignored it. Aaliyah dropped her bag behind the counter, where Harold pointed, rolled up her sleeves and went to work. The hours crawled by. She stacked bottles, swept the floor, refilled snack racks. The warmth inside the store made her dizzy, but it was better than the freezing street. Evan kept glaring every time he walked past his steps, loud on purpose. Harold, meanwhile, busied himself at the register. The last customer left, and the parking lot outside went dark. Henry turned the sign to closed, but didn't lock the door yet. "You can stay till morning," he said softly. "We open again at 6, but you'll have to be up before customers start coming in." "Thank you," Aaliyah said, her throat thick. "I'll do more work. Whatever you need." He smiled faintly. "You've done into the corner near the back room, sitting on the floor beside the storage shelf." She wrapped her arms around her knees, exhaustion pressing down hard. For the first time that night, she felt a little safe, but not for long. Evan came out from the office a few minutes later, holding his phone, his jaw tight. "Harold," he said, "we're short $20 from the drawer." Henry frowned. "We've been busy. Maybe miscounted." "No," Evan said, his voice rising. She came in. It was there early. Aaliyah looked up, startled. "What?" "I didn't save it," Evan snapped. "You've been walking around near the counter all night. Don't tell me you didn't see the drawer." "I didn't touch anything," she said, standing. "I was just cleaning like you told me." "Don't lie," he said, taking a step closer. "You people always have an excuse." Harold's tone hardened. But Evan wasn't listening. "First you wander in here looking for free heat." His voice was sharp, ugly. "I should have known." Aaliyah's stomach twisted. "You can check me," she said quickly. "I didn't take anything." "Oh, I will," Evan said, moving toward her. Henry stepped between them. "That's enough. Nobody's checking anybody." "We'll look at the camera fine," Evan said, jaw tight. He stormed into the office. Henry turned to her. "Don't worry, it'll clear this up." But Aaliyah, as she watched Evan in the back room through the glass window, clicking through security footage. After a few minutes, he came out smirking. "Cameras blank between 11:30 and 12, he said. "Footage is gone. Must have been when she was working." "That's not possible," Henry said. "We just installed that system." "Guess we'll never know," Evan said, crossing his arms. "But I know what I saw." Aaliyah's voice broke. "I didn't take your money." "Then where is it?" he sneered. "You think you can walk in here, play helpless, and I'll just let it slide?" Henry cut in sharply. "That's enough, Evan." But Evan kept going. "She's a thief. Harold, you don't see it because you're too damn soft." The air felt thick. The old heater buzzed in the corner, the only sound between them. Aaliyah's hands shook as she fumbled with her bag. "You can look," she said, her voice trembling. I don't have anything. Before I forget the cops. Harold turned to him, furious. You're out of line, am I? You want to cover for her? Go ahead, but don't say I didn't warn you. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Don't do that, Henry said sharply. I said don't. Evan froze, glaring, but lowered his phone. Aaliyah's eyes filled with tears. She refused to let fall. It's okay, she whispered. I'll leave. Henry stepped forward. The rest of that footage. No, he walked into the office, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed felt endless. Evan leaned against the counter, watching her with a cold smirk. People like you never learn, he muttered. Always think someone owes you something. She said nothing. Her fists clenched at her sides, nails digging into her palms. She wanted to scream, but she stayed still. A minute later, Henry came out holding a small remote. He said calmly, I forgot to tell you. We have a backup camera, hidden one by the cooler. Evan's face went pale. What? You heard me. Harold pressed play. The screen behind the counter flickered. There was Evan standing at the register around midnight, opening the drawer, pulling out a bill, and slipping it into his jacket. Then, a few minutes later, him walking back to the office. Harold stopped the video, the silence pounding. Like thunder. Evan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. You want to explain that? Henry asked, his voice flat. Evan's face twisted. I was checking the balance. Save it, Henry said. Get your stuff. You're done. You're firing me over her, Evan shouted, pointing at Aaliyah. Over some stray you found freezing on the street. No, Harold said calmly. I'm firing you because you're a liar. For a second, Evan looked like he made him stop. He grabbed his coat from the hook, muttering curses under his breath as he stormed out. The door slammed behind him, the bell clanging hard before the sound faded into the wind outside. The store went quiet again. Henry turned back to Aaliyah. She stood frozen, her hands trembling, her eyes wide with shock. You okay? He asked gently. She nodded, but her throat felt tight. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't, over his face, he said, tired. I'm sorry you had to hear that. Some people, they only see what they want to see. She swallowed hard. Thank you for believing me. Didn't take belief, he said. Just needed to look at the truth. He sighed. You can stay in the back room tonight. There's an old cot near the stock shelves. It's not much, but it's warm. She blinked, disbelief flickering across her face. She nodded slowly, a small, grateful smile forming despite her exhaustion. Thank you, she whispered. Really? Get some rest, he said. We'll figure something out in the morning. She followed him to the back room. The walls were lined with boxes of paper towels and canned goods, the air faintly smelling of cardboard and citrus. There was a thin cot near the heater, exactly as he said. He handed her an extra blanket from Lock the door if it makes you feel better. I will, she said softly. He gave a small nod and left the door clicking shut behind him. The hum of the heater filled the room. Aaliyah sat on the cot, the blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. For the first time in hours, she felt something close to relief. Her body ached, her mind was raw, but she was still here, red crack trembling, and exhaled a long, shaky breath. She whispered, thank you, though she didn't know if she meant Henry's hidden camera or something higher. Lying back, she closed her eyes. The noise from the store faded, replaced by the steady sound of the wind outside. She thought about Arthur, the old man she had helped, and wondered if he was asleep, now safe in his warm house. The image made her smile, but that small act of kindness, both hers and Harold's, had just changed the direction of her life again. And as the heater hummed and snow tapped softly against the window, Alana Carter, for the first time in a long while, drifted into a deep, peaceful sleep. The black car showed up just after sunrise. It stopped quietly outside the convenience store while the streets were still half asleep, and the air was sharp when she noticed it through the window. The car was too clean, too polished for Maplebrook. It didn't belong here. She frowned, broom still in her hand, watching as a tall man in a dark coat stepped out and looked around before walking toward the door. Henry looked up from the register, curious. You expecting someone? He asked. No, Aaliyah said, shaking her head. Never seen that car before. The bell above the door jingled quiet confidence, not like a customer, but like someone on a mission. His coat was buttoned perfectly, his hair neat, his eyes calm and focused. He looked around once, then spotted Aaliyah. "Good morning," he said politely. "I'm looking for someone named Alana Carter." Aaliyah blinked, surprised. "That's me." The man nodded slightly. "My name's Calvin. I work for Mr. Alfred Layton. He asked me to find you." The sound of that name hit Aaliyah. "Yes," Calvin replied. "Mr. Layton remembers what happened last night. He wanted to thank you in person." Henry frowned, confused. "Arthur Layton, the one up on Oak Hill." "That's right," Calvin said. "He gave me this." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn and creased. Aaliyah recognized it immediately. The old store receipt she'd torn in half the night before. Her handwriting was still there, phone number shaky, and her eyes widened. "He still had that," she whispered. Calvin nodded. "He kept it in his hand all night. When he woke up this morning, he handed it to me and said, 'Find her.'" "But how did you know I was here?" Aaliyah asked, still stunned. "I called the number you wrote," Calvin explained, "but it didn't go through. So, I asked around town. Small place like this, people talk. Someone at the delivery company said they'd seen you helping out here last night." She stared at the paper, speechless. "He really remembered me, every detail," Calvin said, "and he hasn't stopped talking about you since." Henry leaned on the counter, impressed. "You must have made quite an impression, kid." Aaliyah looked down, unsure what to say. Calvin gestured toward the door. "If you're ready, Mr. Layton would like to see you," he insisted. "I bring you to him." She hesitated. "Wait," Calvin said simply. Henry gave her a nod. "Go on, Aaliyah. You should see what this is about." "You sure?" she asked softly. "I'm sure," he said. "I'll keep an eye on your things till you get back." She took a deep breath, set the broom aside, and grabbed her coat. The air outside was cold and sharp, the kind that bit your skin but woke you up. The black car waited at the curb, steam curling from the exhaust. Calvin opened the back door for her. She hesitated for a second, then climbed in. The seat was warm. The car smelled faintly of pine and leather. She hadn't sat in anything that clean in years. Calvin got in the front and started the engine. As they drove, Maplebrook passed by. Slowly, the old diner, the cracked sidewalks, the same streets she'd biked through every day. But from inside the car, everything looked different, small when he was lost, Calvin said after a few minutes. "He told me you wrapped your scarf around him, that you got him home when he couldn't remember who he was." "He looked scared," Aaliyah said quietly. "I couldn't just leave him. Most people did," Calvin said. "But you didn't." The ride was quiet after that. When they reached Oak Hill, the snow was thinner, the roads clearer. The car turned into a long driveway lined with bare trees. She remembered the one from the night before. "This is where I brought him," she said softly. "Yes," Calvin said, pulling to a stop. "He's been waiting for you since morning." The front door opened before they even reached it. Alfred Layton stood there, cane in hand, smiling. He looked healthier now, his posture straight, his eyes alert. "There you are," he said warmly. "Come in, child, please." "Have to send someone for me," she said. Arthur chuckled. "You didn't have to save me either, but you did. Seems fair." She smiled nervously and stepped inside. The house was bright and warm, filled with the smell of coffee and wood polish. A fire burned quietly in the fireplace. Arthur motioned for her to sit on the couch while he eased into a chair across from her. "I remember everything now," he said. "You found me at that bus stop when no one else would. You even left me that paper with your name." Aaliyah looked at the folded receipt still in his hand. "I didn't think you'd keep it. It reminded me that people still care," he said softly. "That I'm not just an old man waiting to be forgotten. I'm just glad you're okay," she said. "You don't owe me anything." "Oh, but I do," he said. "You gave me more than a ride. You gave me a reason to remember who I am." That doesn't happen often at my age. A lot better than last night. She smiled faintly. I am, he said. You brought me back to myself, and now I want to return the kindness. You don't have to, she started, but he shook his head. I want to. You said you lost your home and your job, didn't you? She hesitated, then nodded. It's been rough, she admitted. I'll be fine, though. I always figure it out. You don't have to figure it out alone, he said. I have more rooms here than I can use as long as you need. Her eyes widened. Here, I can't do that. It doesn't feel right. It's not charity, he said firmly. It's gratitude. You helped me when you didn't have to. Now, let me help you. She stared at him, unsure what to say. His tone wasn't forceful. It was kind, steady, sincere. Just think about it, he said. If you stay, we'll find you some work. Maybe help you get back to school. I've been wanting to start a small fund to help young people. I could use your help with that. Me? She asked. Why me? Because you understand what it means to struggle and still do the right thing, he said. That's what this world needs more of. She sat quietly, her mind spinning. A small part of her wanted to run. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. But another part deeper down wanted to believe it was real. Okay, she said finally, her voice soft. I'll stay. Good. Just for a little while. That's all I ask. He looked at Calvin. Show her to the guest room, would you? The one with the garden view. Of course, Calvin said. As Aaliyah stood, Arthur said gently, And Aaliyah, thank you again. You didn't just bring me home. You reminded me what kindness looks like. She smiled, shy but genuine. You don't have to thank me anymore. Maybe not, he said, but I will anyway. She followed Calvin upstairs, her steps quiet, peaceful, the air warm and still. When they reached her room, she stopped in the doorway. The bed was soft, the window wide, the garden below covered in white. This is for me, she asked. Calvin nodded. Mr. Layton insisted. It's too much, she murmured. He doesn't see it that way, Calvin said. He says you gave him something he can't repay. She turned to the window again, the morning light bright. She felt like she belonged somewhere, even if just for a moment. The next morning, Aaliyah woke up to sunlight for the first time in weeks. It streamed through the wide window, spilling across the white sheets and soft carpet. For a moment, she didn't move. Her mind took a few seconds to catch up, trying to remember where she was. Then she sat up slowly, blinking at the side of the room. The dresser polished the curtains clean, the faint surrounded by quiet that wasn't cold or empty. She got dressed quickly, brushing her hair back and folding the blanket, even though no one had asked her to. When she opened the door, the hallway outside was empty. She followed the sound of voices downstairs. Arthur sat at the dining table with Calvin, a cup of tea steaming beside him. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. Well, good morning. Better than I have in a long time, she said honestly. Thank you again for letting me stay. No thanks needed, he said. You helped me when no one else did. This is the least I can do. She hesitated before sitting down, feeling out of place among the fine furniture and silverware. Arthur noticed and gave her a reassuring look. Relax, he said. You're not a guest here. You're welcome. A cup of tea. She nodded quietly, then excused himself to answer a phone call. The house fell into a comfortable silence. You said last night you wanted to talk about something, Aaliyah said. Arthur smiled. Yes, I did. I've been thinking about what happened to me and to you. It reminded me how easy it is for people to fall through the cracks. You lost your home because you did something kind. That shouldn't happen to anyone. She looked down, her fingers sometimes. It doesn't have to be, he said. Not if people care enough to change it. He leaned back in his chair. I want to start something, a small foundation to help young people like you. Somewhere they can get back on their feet, finish school, find jobs, real help, not charity. Aaliyah blinked, caught off guard. You mean like a program? Exactly, Arthur said. I've been thinking about it for a while, but I never had the right person to help. She asked, startled. Yes, you, he said. You know what it means to struggle and still choose to help someone. That's what this needs. It needs heart. I don't know anything about running something like that, she said quickly. I've never even gone to college. You'll learn, he said with a small smile, and I'll make sure you have the chance to. I'd like to help you go back to school if that's what you want. She stared at him. I'd invest in it, he corrected, because people like you are worth investing in. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Her chest felt tight, but not in a bad way. She wasn't used to hearing words like that directed at her. I don't want to take advantage of your kindness, she said quietly. This isn't about taking advantage, Arthur said. It's about accepting help when it's offered. You've spent your life giving it. Let someone else take a turn. Stay a while. Think about it. She nodded slowly. All right, she said. I'll think about it. Good, Arthur said. In the meantime, there's plenty to do around here. Calvin will show you the library later. There's an office attached to it. Could use someone organized. Maybe you start there. She smiled for the first time that morning. I can do that. I know you can, he said. After breakfast, Calvin showed her around the house. Tall ceilings, long halls, shelves full of books that looked older than she was. There was a greenhouse out back, its glass roof dusted with snow. The air inside smelled like soil and lemon trees. Mr. Layton comes here every morning, Calvin said. Says it helps him think. Aaliyah touched one of the plants gently, the leaves warm from sunlight trapped in the glass. It's beautiful, she said. It's quiet, Calvin replied. She helped where she could, organizing the office, sorting mail, tidying up small things no one had touched in years. Every so often, she'd catch herself pausing, wondering if she was dreaming. It didn't feel real yet, being somewhere safe, being needed. Late in the afternoon, Arthur found her at the desk, surrounded by old papers. How's it going? He asked. Good, she said, smiling faintly. You weren't kidding about the mess. I've been meaning to get to it. She looked up at him. You really trust me with all this? You trusted me last night, he said simply. That made her smile again. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not for what she lacked, but for what she could be. That evening, they had dinner together in the small dining room, not the big formal one. Arthur insisted on keeping things simple. They talked about her mother, his wife, the town, the way people had changed over the years. And when he did, it was always thoughtful. When she told him about losing her job, he just nodded and said, "Sometimes life closes doors because it knows you're meant to walk through another one." That sounds like something people say when they have money, she said half joking. Arthur laughed softly. Maybe, but it's still true. After dinner, Calvin brought in some papers for Arthur to sign, then excused himself again across the table. The house grew quiet. You've had a hard life, haven't you? He said gently. Yeah, she admitted, but so have a lot of people. True, he said, but not everyone keeps their kindness through it. That's rare. She didn't know how to respond, so she just said, "Thank you." "Don't thank me," he said. "Just promise me something." "What's that?" "That you'll stay, at least until you find your footing. Give this a chance." She looked down to run like she always did when things got too good. But something about Arthur's tone made her stop. He wasn't offering charity, he was offering trust. "Okay," she said finally, "I'll stay." Arthur smiled, relief softening his face. "Good," he said. "Then tomorrow we start talking about the foundation, what I've decided to call it, the Maple Light Foundation," he said. "You inspired it. We'll help young people who've lost their way just like I lost mine that night." "That's really nice." "It's necessary," he said, "and it'll be our project together." "Together," she repeated, still not believing it. "Yes," he said. "I'll handle the money. You'll handle the heart." She laughed softly. "I'm not sure what that means." "You will," he said with a grin. "You've already proven you know how to care about people. The rest you'll learn." As the fire in the corner crackled, the warmth of the room died. Aaliyah felt like the ground under her feet was steady again. When she went to bed that night, she lay awake for a while, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel lonely. Somewhere downstairs, she could hear Arthur's voice faintly through the floor. talking to Calvin about plans, ideas, and lists. The sound made her smile. Maybe this was what hope sounded like. Steady, in a long time, Aaliyah let herself believe that her story wasn't over yet. News about Aaliyah staying with Arthur spread faster than either of them expected. It started as a small mention in a local newspaper, just a short piece about the retired businessman Alfred Layton, seen again in good health after weeks of illness, reportedly cared for by a young woman who showed remarkable compassion. But within days, that small story picked it up, turning it into a feel-good miracle about kindness and second chances. Someone took a picture of Aaliyah walking beside Arthur in town, helping him with groceries. It looked innocent enough. Arthur smiling, Aaliyah laughing, but online people turned it into something else. Comments started appearing, some kind, some cruel. "She's such a good kid," one person wrote. "Wish more young people were like her." But below it, another said, "You really think some girl off the street helps an old rich man out of the goodness of her heart?" Aaliyah didn't see the post at first. She was too busy working with Arthur on the foundation. The days were full. Meetings, paperwork, letters, planning sessions that ran late into the night. Arthur was patient and steady, teaching her about everything from budgeting to outreach programs. For once, she felt noise online and decided to tell Arthur before Aaliyah saw it herself. "It's getting some attention," he said carefully one morning, setting his tablet on the desk. "Mostly positive, but a few people are skeptical." Arthur looked at the screen, frowning. "People will always talk," he said simply. "Yes, but some of these comments are spreading fast," Calvin said. "It might be wise to get ahead of it." "No," Arthur said, shaking his head. "We'll keep doing." Unfortunately, the world didn't see it that way. A few days later, one of those skeptical voices became louder and personal. Evan, the former store manager, he'd been scrolling through social media when he saw a headline, "Mysterious Teen Rescues Local Billionaire." He froze when he saw her face. Aaliyah, the same girl who'd gotten him fired, the same girl who, in his mind, had made him look like a fool in front of everyone. His hands clenched around. The article showed her smiling beside Arthur, dressed neatly, standing in front of a white gate. The caption called her a young woman with a heart of gold. He felt his stomach twist with anger. "Heart of gold," he said under his breath. "Sure, more like gold digger." The jealousy turned into something uglier. As the hours passed, he started posting comments under fake accounts, hinting that Aaliyah had used Arthur, that she'd played the sympathy. A few nights later, he made a video sitting in his car, face half lit by the dashboard glow. He spoke directly into his phone camera. "You've all heard about that sweet story of the poor girl helping the rich old man," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yeah, I know her. Worked with her. She's no angel. She's a liar and a thief. Don't let that fake smile fool you." He leaned closer. Suddenly end up living in a billionaire's house. "You think that's coincidence? Come on." He uploaded it to a local gossip page. By the next morning, it had thousands of views. The comments poured in. Some people believed him right away. Others demanded proof. He didn't have much, but he didn't need it. The rumor was enough. By the time Aaliyah checked her phone that afternoon, she could feel that something was wrong. Dozens of notifications she started reading. "She's scamming him," one comment said. "How pathetic." Another wrote, "Rich old guy gets played by a teenage sob story. Classic." Her hands trembled as she scrolled. "Arthur," she called, her voice small. He looked up from his desk. "What is it?" "People are saying things about me. About us online." Arthur frowned and reached for his glasses. She handed him the phone. He read in silence for a minute, then sighed calmly. "Don't let it get to you. But they're saying I used you," she said, her voice shaking, "that I only helped you for money. They think I'm some kind of scammer." Arthur's tone stayed even. "And you know that's not true." "That doesn't matter," she said, tears welling up. "They believe it. The internet believes everything for a day," he said gently. "Then it moves on." But this one didn't. Within 24 hours, the story was spinning headlines like "Billionaire's young companion sparks questions." Some didn't name her directly, but everyone knew. The comments became crueler. Some said she was manipulating Arthur. Others hinted at things worse. Aaliyah stopped checking her phone altogether. She couldn't stand seeing her name twisted by strangers. Arthur tried to reassure her. "People are restless," he said one night. "They like to tear down what they don't understand." She said quietly, "This is my fault." "Nonsense," he said firmly. "You did what was right. I won't let anyone change that." Calvin was more cautious. "We could release a statement," he suggested. "Clarify that nothing inappropriate happened, that the foundation is legitimate." Arthur shook his head. "I don't owe anyone an explanation for kindness." Started showing up at the gates, calling through the intercom, asking for interviews. Neighbors whispered. Aaliyah could feel their stares whenever she left the house. It wasn't until a week later that something shifted. A familiar face appeared online, Henry, the store owner. He'd seen the videos, the accusations, and it made him furious. One evening, he sat in his office, pulled up the old store camera footage, and "That girl a liar," he said in the video. "I was there. I saw what happened. She got blamed for stealing money she didn't touch. You want proof? Here it is." The clip showed Evan clearly taking cash from the register. Henry spoke over it. "She worked hard. She was respectful. She didn't take a damn thing. That man lied then, and he's lying now." The video went viral overnight. People started connecting the dots. Old customers commented and wrote, "She used to deliver my groceries. Always polite, always on time." A few others posted photos and short clips of her helping Arthur that night, one from across the street showing her holding the bike steady while he climbed on. The tide slowly began to turn. The same people who had doubted her started apologizing, some quietly, some publicly. "Maybe we judged too fast," one post read. Arthur showed her the comments in the end. Aaliyah didn't smile right away. "It still hurts," she said softly. "It shouldn't have to get this far." "No," he agreed, "but now they know who you are." A week later, the local paper released a new article. This one told the story properly from the night at the bus stop to the day the rumors broke. The headline read, "Kindness Under Fire. The girl who reminded a town what humanity looks like." It quoted Henry, Calvin, and Arthur said in the article, "She did it because she cared." That's the truth. When Aaliyah read it, she felt her chest tighten again, but this time not from pain. "You didn't have to say that," she told Arthur. "Yes, I did," he said. They needed to hear it. After that, things started to settle. The reporters stopped coming. The foundation's donations increased. People from nearby towns sent letters thanking her for reminding them to look out for each other. Evan posted one last angry message before deleting his accounts. "Believe what you want," he wrote. "You'll see the truth one day." He never showed his face again. Aaliyah didn't mention him. She didn't need to. She had more important things to do. Every morning she met with Arthur in the study, going over plans for the Maple Light Foundation. They discussed outreach programs, scholarships, but this time the work meant something. One evening, Arthur watched her from across the table as she wrote notes. "You know," he said, smiling faintly, "I think I was right about you." She looked up. "About what?" "That you'd change this place. You already have." She blushed slightly, shaking her head. "I'm just trying to keep up." "Don't sell yourself short," he said. "You turned a story full of hate into one about hope. Small, but real. I guess sometimes you just have to ride a little farther than you planned," she said quietly. Arthur chuckled. "That's one way to put it." The room went quiet again, filled only by the soft ticking of the clock and the crackle of the fire. Outside, the last of the snow was melting. Inside, Aaliyah finally felt what she'd been searching for. Since the night, everything fell apart. Peace. For a few quiet weeks, things finally the reporters stopped calling, and Aaliyah's name was no longer the center of every conversation. She spent her days at the foundation's office with Arthur, helping set up community programs and working on the first scholarship applications. The Maple Light Foundation was becoming real, something solid, something good. They'd opened a small center downtown where kids could get tutoring. Aaliyah would sit by the front desk, greeting people, making them feel welcome. It was simple work, but it made her proud. Arthur watched her with quiet satisfaction, knowing he had made the right choice. Yet, peace never lasted long. One morning, Calvin came in holding a folded newspaper. His face was tense. "You should see this," he said. Arthur glanced at him immediately, sensing something was wrong. "What is it now?" The front page Calvin laid the paper that made Arthur's stomach twist. "Ex-employee claims foundation is a front for exploitation." Beneath it was a photo of Evan, the former store manager, standing outside a building with microphones around him. He looked smug, like someone who had just found a way to wound someone else. The article quoted him directly. "That girl's playing everyone," he said. "She's not helping that old man. She's controlling him. I worked with her. She's manipulative. She's got him fooled. She lies. And soon everyone else will be, too." Arthur exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. "Of course, it's him." Calvin nodded grimly. "He's angry the first video didn't destroy her, so now he's doubling down. Will anyone believe him again after what happened last time?" Aaliyah asked quietly from the corner. She'd been listening the whole time. "Some will," Calvin said. "People like drama more than truth." Arthur looked at her the same way we did before, with patience. But this time, it wasn't just online noise. Evan had given an interview to a local TV station, repeating his story with more detail, claiming he had documents proving Arthur's foundation was funneling money for personal use. It was all lies, but it was enough to stir suspicion again. Anonymous emails started coming to the foundation's inbox, whispered behind Aaliyah's back, unsure what to believe. The damage was small but steady, like cracks forming in glass. Aaliyah felt it every day, people's stares, their hesitation when she walked into a room. One afternoon, a woman she'd worked with on a community drive pulled her aside. "I don't believe those things they're saying," the woman said gently. "But you should know, some folks are talking." Aaliyah nodded. "I figured they would. Just keep your head up. You just keep being who you are." Aaliyah tried, but the weight of it all started pressing down again. That night, she sat in the study long after Arthur had gone to bed, scrolling through the endless stream of comments and posts. It was like watching a storm she couldn't stop. Some people defended her, others attacked. She wanted to scream, but didn't. Instead, she turned off her phone and sat in the dark until the screen downstairs early. Arthur was already at the table reading the paper, his glasses low on his nose. He looked up when he saw her. "You didn't sleep," he said. "I'm fine," she said softly. "You're not," he said, "but I know that look. You're tired of being misunderstood." She didn't answer, just looked at him. "When I was younger," he continued, "a rumor almost ruined my business. Took me months to prove my innocence, but it never dies." "But what if people never listen?" she asked. "Then you live your truth anyway," he said, "because your integrity doesn't depend on their belief." He reached across the table and took her hand. "You helped me remember who I was. Let me help you do the same." His words steadied her more than she expected. Still, she couldn't help feeling small against the force of public opinion. A few days later, things shifted again. Store owner, but this time came by the foundation with a USB drive in his hand. "Thought you might want this," he said. "Found the old camera footage I saved before that punk deleted everything. Shows him taking the money and blaming her." "We already cleared that up," Aaliyah said. "Maybe," Henry said, "but a little reminder never hurts." They uploaded the footage online through the foundation's page, along with a short message for anyone still doubting the truth. "Watch, spread, and decide for yourself." The comments filled with support again. People apologized for ever believing Evan's lies. News outlets that had once run skeptical headlines now released follow-ups correcting the story. One even published an editorial titled, "How We Failed a Young Woman Who Only Showed Kindness." Arthur read it out loud to her at breakfast. "You see, the same mouths that condemned you now praise you. It doesn't feel like a victory," she said. "It feels like a cycle gently, but you came out stronger." The next day, something unexpected happened. A small news crew showed up at the foundation, not with accusations, but with gratitude. They wanted to run a segment on how the organization had grown, despite public scrutiny. The reporter, a young woman with kind eyes, interviewed Aaliyah in the garden behind the building. "You've been through a lot in the last few months," she said. "What keeps you going? That what we do here matters. We help people find second chances. I can't stop because people lied about me. That's not who I am. And what would you say to those who doubted you?" "I'd say I forgive them," she said simply. "Because hate doesn't need company, it needs silence." The reporter looked surprised but nodded, clearly moved. When the segment aired that evening, it spread faster than any of the negative stories ever had. The comments were full of praise and apology. Former critics sent letters of support. One said, "I judged too quickly. You made me want to be better." Arthur watched it all unfold with quiet pride. "You didn't just survive this," he said. "You turned it into something that helps others." "I just told the truth," she said. "Exactly," he said. "That's what makes you different." A few days later, the governor's office reached out asking if Arthur and Aaliyah would attend local organizations making a difference. Aaliyah was nervous, but Arthur insisted she go. "You've earned this," he told her. The event was held in the town hall, a grand old building with marble floors and long rows of seats. Dozens of people came, including some who had once doubted her. When Arthur introduced her on stage, the applause was louder, thanking everyone who supported the foundation and reminding them that kindness wasn't weakness, it was strength. Her voice trembled at first, but by the end, it was steady. When she finished, the room stood in quiet respect. Afterward, several people came up to shake her hand, including the woman from the grocery drive. "Told you to keep your head up," she whispered. "You did good, kid." Aaliyah smiled. Back at the house, she and Arthur sat by the fire. "You proud of yourself yet?" he asked. She laughed softly. "A little." "Good," he said. "You should be." They sat in silence for a moment, the flames flickering low. Then she said, "Do you ever think it'll all go away? The rumors, the memories of it?" "No," Arthur said honestly. "But that's all right. The past doesn't vanish. It just becomes quieter when you fill it, letting the warmth of the fire soak into her tired bones. "Then I guess we just keep building," she said. "That's the spirit," he replied. "Maple Light isn't just about me or you anymore. It's about everyone we've helped." You gave it that heart. The room fell quiet again, but it wasn't heavy. It was full, the kind of silence that comes after surviving something hard and realizing melting into small streams along the road, washing away the dirt and salt left behind. Inside, Aaliyah finally understood that redemption wasn't something given. It was something earned again and again through honesty, patience, and grace. And as she looked across the room at Arthur, this man she'd once found lost and confused at a bus stop, she realized that both of them had been rescued that night, each in their own way. The years passed quietly, grew from one small office into 3 centers across the state. Aaliyah worked harder than anyone, often staying late to meet with students, organize supplies, or write proposals. People respected her. They listened when she spoke. She had become the face of the foundation, not because she wanted the attention, but because her story met a new volunteer. She carried the same calm, grounded energy, the kind that came from surviving something and choosing kindness. Arthur watched with quiet pride. He didn't speak at as many events anymore, his health slowing him down, but he was always there in spirit, reading reports, asking questions, pushing Aaliyah to think bigger. One evening, after a long day of meetings, she found him sitting in the last of the sunset fading through the glass. He was in his chair, wrapped in a blanket, looking at the lemon tree he loved. "You're still working," she said softly, stepping inside. "I'm just sitting," he said with a small smile. "The tree is doing all the work." She pulled up a chair beside him. "The board wants to name the scholarship after you," she said. "They think it'll inspire people. They should name it after you." "We made it matter," she said. He looked at her for a moment and nodded slowly. We did, didn't we? The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. You know, he said, when I first started this foundation, I thought I was just giving money away, but you showed me it wasn't about that. It was about giving people back their dignity. Aaliyah smiled gently. You gave that to me first. You gave it to yourself. The world saw it. His voice was softer now, weaker around the edges. Promise me something, he said. Promise me you'll keep this going even after I'm gone. She blinked. Don't talk like that. I'm old, not immortal, he said with a faint laugh. It's time. You'll do fine without me. She shook her head, tears already forming. I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for you, and I wouldn't have found my way home if it weren't for you, he said, his hand. It was colder than usual. You'll be fine, she said quietly, more to herself than to him. You'll be fine. Maybe, he said, smiling. But if I'm not, I'll rest, knowing you kept the light on. That night, after she helped him back to his room, she stood outside his door for a long time, listening to the faint sound of him humming an old tune. It was the same one he used to first heard when he was lost at that bus stop years ago. 2 weeks later, Arthur passed away in his sleep. There were no dramatic moments, no hospital scenes, just peace. Calvin found him in the morning, still holding the folded blanket she'd given him for warmth. The house fell silent in a way Aaliyah had never known. The air felt heavy, like it was waiting for him to walk in and tell one of his stories. Quiet, filled with people whose lives he'd touched. Businessmen, old friends, families who had received scholarships from the foundation. Aaliyah stood at the front beside Calvin, her hands clasped tightly together, her heart aching in a way she couldn't describe. When it was her turn to speak, she walked up to the podium, took a breath, and looked out at the faces before her. Alfred Layton taught me what kindness really means. Helping people. He believed in seeing them. He saw me when no one else did. He gave me a chance when I had nothing, and because of that, hundreds of others now have a chance, too. Her voice broke slightly, but she steadied it. He once told me that some choices weigh more than others, even when they don't make sense on paper. That night at the bus stop, I made a choice to help someone I didn't know. I didn't know it would change my life or responsibility to keep that choice alive, to keep choosing kindness, even when it costs us something. She looked down for a moment, then up again. He used to say that family isn't always who you're born to, it's who you walk home with in the dark. I think that's what we did for each other, and I hope we can keep walking for everyone else who's still lost out there. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment, before a soft wave, just gentle and real. After the service, Calvin handed her a sealed envelope. He left this for you, he said quietly. Her hands trembled as she took it. She waited until she was home before opening it. Inside was a single handwritten letter and a small photograph of them standing together in front of the foundation on opening day. The letter was written in Arthur's shaky handwriting. My dear Aaliyah, if you're reading this, I've already gone home. The best years of my life. You reminded me that goodness still exists, even when the world forgets. This foundation, this house, everything I built, it's yours to guide now. Don't think of it as a burden. Think of it as a light you carry forward. I've left things in order, but more importantly, I've left you the freedom to make it grow in your way. Keep it honest. Keep it kind. You taught me that real wealth isn't what we keep, and I hope you'll find yours, too. With love, Arthur. She sat there for a long time, reading it again and again until the words blurred through her tears. Then, she folded it carefully and placed it back in the envelope. The next morning, she walked to the greenhouse. The sun was just rising, spilling soft gold through the glass. She stood beside the lemon tree, touched one of its leaves, and whispered. Aaliyah took full leadership of the Maple Light Foundation. She expanded the scholarship program, started mentorships, and opened safe housing for young people aging out of foster care. Every decision she made carried a trace of Arthur's lessons, but also her own touch, humble, steady, genuine. Years later, At the Foundation's 10th anniversary, a reporter asked her how it all began. She smiled and said, "With a bus stop, a lost man," but she meant every word. After the event, she walked alone outside to the old white gate that had once felt like the edge of the world. The same path where she had first brought Arthur home that freezing night now led to a community center full of life. Children laughed in the courtyard. Volunteers carried boxes of food. Somewhere, music played faintly through the open windows. She stood there for a moment, the proof that kindness hadn't been wasted. Calvin, now grey at the temples, joined her quietly. "He'd be proud," he said. "He already was," she replied. They stood together, watching the evening settle in. The streetlights flickered on one by one, and for a second, she thought of that night again. The cold wind, the broken bus stop, the man who'd looked so lost. She remembered his voice, trembling but kind, steady and certain, saying, "Hold on tight, we'll make it." Now, years later, she understood that home wasn't a place at all. It was the moment someone refused to leave you behind. As the sky deepened into twilight, she whispered a quiet thank you to Arthur, to the town, to the girl she once was who chose to stop. The wind brushed past, gentle and cool, shone behind her, its sign glowing softly against the night, a small but steady promise that compassion could outlast everything. Aaliyah turned toward the door, ready to go back to work. The world outside was still full of noise, full of struggle and uncertainty, but she knew now that one act of kindness could echo far longer than hate ever could. And as she walked inside, she carried that truth with her, the same way Arthur had carried it forward for everyone still waiting to be seen. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.